There's this natural rhythm in our life that we can really tap into. Flow is when things feel good, when you move in the direction that you are moving into. And it feels good because that's what is in alignment to you. Resistance is when you go against that. And I always just thought there's something more to life than just your daily ups and downs. And society has you living in such a hedonic way where it's like, go to school, get a good job, and make sure you climb that career ladder and buy a house, buy multiple houses, buy cars, have kids, do all these things and have all these things. Wow, people around me are miserable.
Sally Kellett is a professional meditation teacher and the visionary founder of Marason, a mindfulness studio and well-being hub based in Melbourne, with a mission to help busy professionals recharge and find fulfillment.
I asked so many of my friends and colleagues in the industry, I was like, are you happy? They were just doing it because they had to sustain that lifestyle. And I said, why don't you change? This can't be my life. I don't know what that's going to be, but I'm going to figure it out along the way.
What's so special about it?
It's really tough and it's very scary because you have to go against the grain of what society tells you to do, finding meaning in our everyday. Because even when life throws you the biggest curveball, you realize there is purpose in that.
Sally, what does flow mean to you?
Flow, wow, life and flow. I feel, there is so much resistance in life. And resistance is when we're constantly trying to do something, but then there's just something holding us back or something stops that from happening. And to me, there is this natural flow of the universe. There's this natural rhythm in our life that we can really tap into. And flow is when things feel good, when you move in the direction that you are moving into. And it feels good because that's what is in alignment to you. And so to put it simply, I feel that resistance is when you go against that and flow is when you're working on your path.
I love that. The definitions from people who are so well practiced at this, it's just a beautiful, wide-ranging set of answers I get that there's this alignment piece that keeps coming up, that flow is the feeling of being in alignment. That's kind of what I just heard from you there.
Yeah, 100%.
So you definitely had a bit of an arc to moving into more alignment. Like you were at a global company, Cisco. Yeah. You were like a leading sales force. Like when I say sales force, I don't mean the brand sales force. I mean, you had a big sales force. You're an account manager, huge multi-million-dollar targets. And you actually really liked your work.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I think it's funny because when you have people who transition from a big career, you often hear how much they hated it. But I actually really liked it and it played into a lot of my strengths, my skills. And I'm a big extrovert. I love talking to people. I love building things, including tech for my clients back then. But, there was always a part of me when I was born, I just felt like I was spiritual. And I mean that in the least religious way because I'm still not religious and I don't think I ever will become religious, but don't know. And I always just thought there's something more to life than just your daily ups and downs. And society has you living in such a hedonic way where it's like, go to school, get a good job and make sure you climb that career ladder and buy a house, buy multiple houses, buy cars, have kids, do all these things and have all these things. And yeah, in my early 20s, I just realized, wow, people around me are miserable. Like I asked so many of my friends and colleagues in the industry, I was like, are you happy? Like you have all your kids in private schools, you got 7 houses, you got boats and cars and your wife doesn't have to work. And honestly, like so many of these people just told me that they were just doing it because they had to sustain that lifestyle. And there was no passion because they had had to do it for so many decades. And I said, why don't you change? And they said, I can't. Ooh. Because they were so highly geared, like their lifestyle, right? You couldn't give up that so easily. And that got me thinking in my young 20s, like this can't be my life. I can't get to my 40s and be here where you are, no offense, like to that person, like to these people, right? So when I was 21, when I entered IT, I decided 10 years from now, I've got to have my own business of impact. I don't know what that's going to be, but I'm going to figure it out along the way and it's going to be something that helps other people.
Wow.
So, yeah, 31 years old when I was 31. I'm 36 this year, my gosh. But 31, I had Marason, so...
It's been an amazing ride too. That 5-year journey now, you've built one of the most like stable and engaged communities that we've seen. Like it's not like there's a limit to how many practices can open up that practice yoga.
Correct.
Or mindfulness or sound healing.
Yeah.
Right. So you've done that when the world's exploding and everyone's opening up their own, but you've got over 6,000 people on your database. You're having these events. People are, even my producer had told me like, oh, she's aware of Marasuna. Like, yeah, so people want to go there.
It's so cool.
So what's so special about it? What do you think it is that embodies that spirit of having that purpose and that value add that you were chasing when you set this plan back when you were 21?
I think likes attract likes. And that's one of the universal laws, right? Is the law of attraction. And for me, because I made that shift in my life to pursue more eudaimonic happiness, I think it gave people some inspiration that, oh, there is more to life. And why do, like, some people wake up and they're like, wow, I do have a lot, but why do I feel so empty? And then it just makes people think there's actually something more to life. Like, you could have everything you have, like all the materials, all the houses and everything. I'm not saying give that away, but you could also have your own happiness and feel a deeper sense of purpose in your life. And so when people come across the story of Marasuna and they realize, oh, I can actually be doing something about that. I can actually take control of my life and overcome my challenges and all the things that our community are going through. Like, they're a bunch of really resilient people. They're going through so much in their life. But what everyone has in common is they're willing to take responsibility for their own life and make it better. And I think Marasuna provides a really loving and safe space for that to happen.
Oh, congratulations on creating that loving and safe space. It's not easy for people to take that sort of accountability and just be able to say, hang on, like, this is something that I've got my name on being in control of.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go and pull in those people responsible, me being one of them, and then those that I surround myself with to sort of self-actualize in that way.
It is definitely hard. And, people will make progress. They'll make 3 steps forward and maybe 1.5 step back. There'll always be that moment, the resistance to the flow, because it's hard. Change is really hard, and overcoming your past is really hard. And at times I have had to ask my clients to dissolve most of who they are, most of what they think of themselves or the stories that they have in their head about themselves, only to have their version of their phoenix rising from the ashes moment. That can be very hard.
Yeah, well, even just what you mentioned in your early 20s, how you'd spoken to other people in something that you were very good at. I feel a lot of resonance in that because it was in my early 20s, I was still in the engineering sector in coal mining industry.
Oh, wow.
And I tripped over real estate really because I was doing yet another hobby, managing bands and events. And the girlfriend that I was with that I'd met through that was doing a real estate certificate. So I was talking to all the people in the mines where I was, and I was hearing the same things. Like, they were financially successful. They had cars, they had boats, they had holidays, yet they felt trapped in their own life.
Yeah.
And what I started seeing a lot of was that they were measuring work like it was a separate thing to life.
That's it.
Sort of like, I have to go to work so I can live my life.
Yeah.
And like, when you look at that, it's like, well, hang on, am I not still alive when I've clocked on? Like, it's not like I die and then come back alive again at the end. So how do I find something that feels like I'm alive during it, that's kind of attracting me? I feel that purpose and feel that potential.
Yeah.
That's a tough thing to sort of want to go after that early.
It's really tough, and it's very scary because you have to go against the grain of what society tells you to do, and what society tells you to do is make a lot of money. And some people will die trying to do that, and other people will really struggle. Others will have to work really hard and they'll get there. But regardless of how you get there and what you get when you get there, that is completely irrelevant to the level of happiness you can feel in your life. Like, they are completely two different practices. The practice of making money is totally different to the practice of finding happiness. And the issue is that practice of making money can sometimes drown out the need or the practice or even the acknowledgement of the need to be happy at full stop.
Do you think it's fundamental to humans that they need to be happy?
100%. I think we have been given one precious lifetime, such a sacred life, such a short one too, right? I mean, well, we're here for less than 100 years. Maybe we'll live over to 100.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right? I think with AI, there's a chance that we'll be raising the average a lot. But either way, it's short in the time scale of the universe.
Very short. It's a blip. Like, I think about my life now. I'm like, what? I'm 36 almost? Like, where did my life just go, And then before you and I know it, we're going to be 80. So life is very short. It's very sacred. It's very precious. And so I think the sooner we all realize that as humans, we just want to make it the best life possible and be happy, then the sooner we can get on with our practice of finding happiness.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Like you can actually just be looking for happiness in everything you do. Correct. Rather than whether it's in life or social circles.
Absolutely.
You made a comment before that I think I want to unpack for our listeners a bit more, because people may have heard of hedonic happiness, which is tied to hedonism and, pleasure, like almost passive pleasure that you're receiving from external influences. But eudaimonic is kind of like the opposite of that. It's sort of like extrinsic and intrinsic, right? Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So, society has you wanting a lot of hedonic happiness, right? Because it wants you to feel that sudden burst of reward and that buzz after you buy your car and you buy your house. But actually, science has proven that generally you only get about 6 months worth of happiness when you get your X, X, Y, Z, right? And then very quickly that house or that car or that thing you had to buy, or it could even be human, by the way, like acquiring a partner.
Yeah, well, I know it sounds funny, but that's actually what's happening, right? They're acquiring a mate.
Correct. Yeah. And these things, hopefully your partner gives you more than 6 months of happiness. But, like a car or a house, like you very quickly will find yourself thinking, okay, what's my next goal? And then you find that the happiness has not lasted any longer than that. There are some ways you can make that happiness last for longer, but it's not a lifetime, right? So hedonic happiness is about attaching your happiness to things on the outside, saying that when I get X, I'm going to feel happy. But the problem with that, and what I loved about my nun teachers when they kept teaching me about this, is that inevitably that thing changes. The nature of that thing changes. If you think you're really happy because you just got this hot chick, well, she ain't probably going to be so hot in 50 years' time. Like, I'm sorry. We wish we could be, but, like these things change. And also like the beautiful mansion that you buy one day you're not going to like those fixtures and fittings anymore. One day that wall is not going to be it's not going to stay the same color that you originally chose. Things will start to break and then you won't feel that same buzz anymore. And so what? Should our happiness then disappear because that thing changed? Because then we'll never find true happiness. Happiness won't be sustainable. Yeah. So eudaimonic happiness is about finding happiness on the inside, attaching our happiness to things that bring us real joy, meaning, purpose, finding purpose in our life, finding meaning in our everyday, finding meaning in the one lifetime we've been given. And those things give you sustenance to live every day. Those things are what helps you rise from your biggest challenges. Because even when life throws you the biggest curveball, you realize there is purpose in that. There is a teaching in that. There is lots of gratitude for that crappy situation because of everything it brought into your life, So that type of happiness lasts forever. I
love that. Yeah. So leaning on to what's on the inside as being lasting, looking at what's on the outside as being something that can erode. And I find that particularly with my own sort of goal setting, when I first became sort of indoctrinated into so much of this sort of self-awareness stuff. And I was a student of NLP for many years before becoming a practitioner. You're a practitioner of NLP as well. Yeah. And you're using it as part of Marason, obviously. Right. I did it probably more to understand myself and the organizations and the interpersonal relationships that I was aware of, but the thinking patterns as well. And I suppose taking that back to how you can provide that value to others. How do you help people find meaning when they first come in to Mirasuna? That's a pretty big thing to find. What's an example of how you've helped people find some meaning in their own everyday life?
Yeah. So it's complicated. It requires a lot of levels. But I think the very first thing is I simply ask them, what is meaningful to you? Because so many people struggle to answer that. Actually, most of my one-on-one clients, most of the clients that I get personally come from a corporate world, or they are business owners. They're, your execs of the world, and a lot of men. And they are busy living the manly expectation where you have to provide and for your family, and you got to be all macho and you can't be emotional because that's too girly in inverted commas, or you're being too emotional. That's not masculine, apparently. This is all very toxic ideas, I feel. But they are also ashamed or embarrassed to admit that they tie their success or their happiness to what's in their bank account. But there's actually nothing wrong with that, because searching for meaning in your life is a journey, and it's okay to start from a certain point to then actually start to realize over time, oh, actually, I value more things like the people in my life, the conversations I have, how many people I can help, how many people I've inspired, how many people I can mentor, things like that. So I think the very first step is helping people understand, what do you actually derive meaning from?
And already. What's already present in your life that you derive meaning from?
Correct. And how do you actually measure your success as a human? And you know, it's so funny because I always ask, how do you measure your success to someone like an exec type profile? And they'll be like, oh, will it be like how many business deals I do, like how happy my employees are? And I'm like, no, I'm actually asking, how do you measure the success of your life? And they're like, whoa. What does that mean?
If you're bringing about a life measurement sort of process here, I feel like that's a message that would be valuable for a lot of people, even those that might not get to come to Marason, they could still be impacted by your messaging.
Yeah.
You said earlier too about how you were actually quite good at your job.
Yeah.
And this is one of the zones I think in flow that people get a bit trapped in sometimes because like we tend to like things that we're good at and then we become good at things that we like and then it kind of swells like snowballs. Yeah. Now, like that's fine if what you like is the same thing that you feel like you're on purpose for and you're contributing to the world and it's how you measure your success in life. Yeah. However, if it's not what you would have first chosen as something that moves you, that you want to be working on, and you're more doing it because you're good at it, you think it's going to provide or something like that, that would be somewhere I imagine, again, males and executives, like it wouldn't be limited to genre, I imagine. That would be something you see a bit of where people have a life that looks pretty well put together. What signs are you looking out for there that they've got a life that looks like it's put together, but they're not actually tapping into their flow and their purpose?
You can actually see it very easily. You can see it in their face. And I saw this all the time. Like when I talk to people, I can, you know, if you're intuitive, you can tell if someone's happy. You know, you can tell like what is their relationship like with their family and their kids. And a lot of it comes down to time. Like you will hear over and over again, no, I can't do that. I got no time. And when someone tells me they never have time, in inverted commas, I can already tell that something can be changed there, like a mindset. There's like so much juicy opportunity for a mindset change. Because I one time in my life also felt I don't have time to do this or that because I'm too busy working. Yeah, I'm not working 9 to 5. I'm working way more than that. But I learned a really big lesson after starting Marason is you have to create time. And that is based on your priorities in life and how much you actually prioritize your health and your happiness. So before, when I didn't have time, my self-care activities might go to the wayside. Like, for example, if I was too busy, I'll just cancel the gym off my list, or I'll just cancel that thing that was actually going to fill my cup. But now it's the reverse. I put all of those activities that fill my cup into my calendar as actual calendar blocks and like, you know, meeting invites in my own calendar, and everything else has to work around that. And I just show up differently. I'm happier as a person. Like every time I'm with my friends, I'm just fully present. I'm not checking my phone. I'm not complaining I don't have any time to do the things that I know would make me feel happy. And so there are some really key signs when you talk to people where you can see kind of like where their life is at and how much they value their own health. And I don't mean like just physical health. I mean emotional health, mental health, spiritual health. And health is wealth. So to me, that's how I measure success.
Yeah, that's great. I like it how you say, if you're intuitive, you can pick it up. But you've given us some tips there on what we can look out for. And those words, I never have any time, like never, or I can't. Like, and it's funny because a lot of the people that are saying these things, I get it too. I've been one of them. I still probably catch myself a lot. But there are people that are also coaching other people of, no, you know, don't take no for an answer. Can't's not a word in my vocabulary. And yet when it comes to their own life, and this is what I'm talking about, people seeing life as being separate than their pursuit.
Correct.
Whether it's a career or whether it's like an artistic pursuit or some other practice, that they're seeing them as two separate things.
Correct. And I just wanted to add to that as well. Another sign that anyone can also spot is when you get to know someone, you start to learn where they're spending their time. And what you can see is that some people, they're always trying to spend their time being productive, doing things. You know, a lot of work-related things, yes, but even in their personal life, you'll find that they find a way to be productive, even in their off-work hours. And that's a shift that I'm trying to help our community make, is that shift from doing to being. And that's really key.
I love the terminology of be, do, have rather than have, do, be. Yeah. So, yeah, so much of that extrinsic stuff is when I have this, and I'll give you an example. Like we've recently, my wife and our kids and I have recently made a transition to Melbourne. We've always wanted to live in Melbourne. Oh. Like it's 20 years ago, we started coming here and we started inserting more and more of it. So I was seeing it as this, like I had luggage at the QT hotel. I'd fly around, I'd do a speaking gig, I'd get paid enough to cover the hotel, the accommodation, the hotel, the meals, and I'd go and work from there just so I could be in Melbourne a bit longer and then Nat would come and join me on the weekend and get a babysitter, right? Yeah. And it's like, at some point we're going to buy a house down there and we'll start holidaying down there. And I remember all these horizons kept coming up that like, well, maybe after I've opened that next office, like that'll be enough income to then like substantiate me not being on the front line as much and I can pay this person to come in and then we can do that thing. Or, oh no, I've just launched a new brand, we've rebranded, let's rebrand and when we get that done, then we can make the move. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, maybe we need to consider the school zones and ... and whether we have them in this school or whatever. And what I realized is I wasn't smoking my own crack because I've been telling everyone to go be, do, have instead of have, do, be. And here I am going to have, do, be. And it's like those haves are not going to happen unless we put them in first.
Correct.
And like it's what we want to be. It's the life we want to be. It's how we want to show up in the world. Then we'd be doing things that are important to that person. We'll have anything that's important to that person, but we don't have to wait for it. We can be right now.
That's exactly it. You don't have to wait for happiness. Like happiness is in the here and now. It's here for everyone to have.
That's brilliant. Happiness is in the here and now.
That's right.
Wow. I can see some sort of diagram with that, with the happiness words here and then finding all those letters within there. So for someone that is as self-actualized as you, that's brought so much feeling of flow and connection to the things you're doing day to day, how do you access more of that outside of the Marason world? What are your practices there that you just can't wait to get amongst?
Honestly, the practice of happiness and living in flow has actually become my whole life. Like it has to protrude through all the friendships and the relationships that you have in your life. Like one of the things that I fully changed after COVID was seeing my family so much more. They're all in Sydney, by the way. I'm actually an ex-Sydney sider. Moved to Melbourne like 12 years ago. Yeah. And I think life is like a cleanup. Like your practice needs to be like a cleanup. You need to always be doing housekeeping in your life. So that's actually what I'm doing like all the time subconsciously is my relationship with this person. How is it? Like, how do I make that better? Is it something that is good for both of us or not? And if not, leave it behind. I have done so much housekeeping with the people I relate to and the people that I am in touch with over the last like 5-6 years because you actually only have, well, I mean, look, time is the rarest commodity, right? So we have to guard it like it's sacred. And so to answer your question, like so much of it comes back down to time and where do you want to spend your time and then with who and how do you make that the best quality possible? And then, okay, so that's the people in your life. And then we've just talked about the job front, like finding meaning and purpose through your job. But then I've got my own hobbies and stuff. Like then I think, okay, the things that I love doing, what role does that fill in my life? And the minute it stops fulfilling a good role or I don't need that anymore, then I move on to the next
Tidy it up. Yeah.
So yeah, I think like it's about living very intentionally and making sure that every single element that you sprinkle into your life aligns to your purpose and brings you flow.
I love that. What an impact statement. Every single element that you sprinkle.
Yeah.
I resonate with that quite strongly in that some people, I suppose, I've caught myself doing it, but I hear it a lot in the outside world as well, of people talking about things that are in their life as if they've got no choice for them to be there. And it's sort of like, I'm not going to say it in a negative way that it's victim talk, but it is speaking as if they're powerless, which is kind of part of the definition of victim. It's like we're at cause and we're creating our own reality and how we perceive it. Or we're at effect and someone else is creating it. One of the challenges with someone else creating our reality is not only do the bad things that occur, they're someone else's fault, but it means you can't take responsibility for anything good happening either because we're saying it's not our fault.
That's right.
So how do you help people move out of that kind of thinking? If you're so sort of self-aware and self-actualized, there's going to be other people in your life that maybe haven't done as much work or learning on it yet.
Yeah.
And like, I imagine that would be a bit challenging for you not to become their guru. How do you deal with this?
And you know what? You can't give advice when it's not asked. That was one of the things that my Buddhist teacher taught me is, you have to allow someone to go on their journey. So yes, like especially as a practitioner, I see so many people's lives where I'm like, I could easily give you 10 recommendations or less, maybe even one, and your whole life would change. And I know that if they did X, Y, Z, something better would arise. But I am so conscious that everyone is imperfect, including myself. And we are humans because we're not perfect. If we were perfect, maybe we wouldn't even be a human. I don't know. I mean, if you're religious, maybe you'd be enlightened and a Buddha and a God by now. Who knows, right? But I know for a fact that being human, we are imperfect. And so you can't take away someone's journey from them. You and I, everyone who's listening to this, we've all gone through so much hardship in life that we have been able to overcome and be who we are because of that, right? What if we never experienced any hardship in our life? How would we ever grow? How would we ever become compassionate, loving, nurturing, less angry, less frustrated beings? We just wouldn't. We wouldn't even be able to sit here and have this conversation about finding happiness. And so number one is don't give advice unless if it's asked. But secondly is really respecting someone's journey and seeing that this is something they have to go through and that no one should just come along and take that from them, because lessons need to be learned through experience and by doing. So that's really key for me. But the second thing is you ask, like, how do you help people start seeing that they are actually in power of what they do? Just ask them, like, does this make you feel powerless? If anything was available to you, how would you change your life? How could you get yourself out of this situation? Because they know themselves the best. But the thing is, so many people do not tap into that inner wisdom. And so I see my job as someone who helps them access their inner wisdom, because I believe that's where all the answers are within someone.
I like that. It's already there.
It's already there.
We're already whole.
Correct.
Usually we've just got to remove some things that are kind of covering up our light.
Exactly. We are not broken. We are definitely not. And so many people come in and they're like, I'm so broken my whole life, like everything's falling to pieces. I can't find myself and I've lost myself. And I always say, you are there. Like, you are so perfectly whole inside, but let's just help you find that.
Yeah. One of our other esteemed guests, Nerida Bint, she's an amazing sort of empowerment coach. Yeah. And she has exactly the same belief. And I do too. And it's sort of like it becomes a strong message that is being said in multiple different ways around the world. Yeah. That you are whole. We've got to remove stuff. We don't have to put stuff in to make you whole.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful message. And
it's just such a relief, don't you think? Like, because people are searching for answers out there. Somewhere out there, they're like, I'm looking for my answer and like how to be better, like how to fix this situation. But the answer's just inside. So we're carrying it this whole time.
It seems to be the question is more important than the answer.
Yeah.
Like what questions we're asking of ourselves.
Yes. Correct.
And, like what you've just mentioned there, it sits in very well with you being a guide in their hero's journey.
Yes.
And now for it to be a hero's journey, there's got to be a hero that's already whole.
Yes.
Right? They don't know it yet, just like Obi-Wan Kenobi or any of those characters in any good story, right? There's a hero that doesn't know it yet.
That's exactly.
There's an almost insurmountable objective that needs to be done where there's a huge consequence if it doesn't work out. And so to overcome those barriers, the guide emerges, like whether it's some Yoda kind of character or whatever. And they help you overcome those barriers, but you've still got to overcome them themselves.
Correct. No one can change your life for you. Only you can change your own life.
So you've got to, I suppose, in order to change though, we've got to know what we want.
Yeah, 100%. You need to know the end goal of how, like your end state that you want to feel, like if someone's like always angry, I was always angry. I felt like coming from...
I can't imagine you being always angry. Oh, my God.
Me too now. Oh, man, growing up in Sydney and having a family that's just so like always like, so pedantic, I felt like every tiny thing would irritate me. And like everything just had to be done on time. I was so impatient. And when things weren't done perfectly, I was like,
Yeah.
But now like completely different because I've understood that the antidote to anger is actually patience. And I learned that from a Buddhist teacher. And anyway, that's a different story for a different day because there's a huge teaching around that.
Well, just give us a nugget on it, because the antidote to anger being patience, that's like, it's not what you would think.
No.
You'd think the opposite of anger was like some sort of love or something like that.
Yeah, so
Why
the
patience?
very quick synopsis is you basically get angry at people in this world because they're not doing things in a way that you think is good, right? But where patience comes in is everyone's only doing what they can based on the wisdom that they have at that moment. You make a decision based on the wisdom that you have in that moment. And so sorry if that pissed someone off. That wasn't good enough for someone that you then made angry, right?
Yeah.
But what that person needs to understand is, well, we all came from somewhere. And maybe they have learned life lessons that we haven't yet. And maybe you've learned a life lesson that they haven't yet. And so, yes, it's all well and good for us to sit here and be like, well, why didn't you do it this way? That's so annoying how you did it. And now I'm angry. We should just be like, okay, well, you actually didn't have the wisdom at that point to make a decision that was more in line with what wouldn't have made me angry. But the patience is knowing that. The patience is knowing that everyone is on their own journey, and to be patient with people, to be compassionate and know that if you were the one making that mistake, you would also want that same level of compassion and understanding, would you not?
Yeah, that makes total sense. Like, I often talk about frustration, right? So frustration is just a mismatch in expectations. So if we had expectations that were rigid about how we want something outside of our control to turn out, then we've already set ourselves up for failure. Correct. Because it's impossible to hit a perfect target, because there's no such thing as a perfect target regardless.
Exactly.
And then when the frustration is existing, if there's a sense of loss going with it, then that's where the resentment builds, because I resent you or that thing for stopping me having what I imagine to be perfect.
But taking that away from me.
So now if we can name the person and we add time pressure to it or some other imagined consequence, that's where the anger comes in.
Yeah.
And all that can be resolved with patience.
Correct. Having a little love and compassion and understanding that someone's journey takes time. Yeah.
Wow, I've learned so much about you in this part of the conversation already. What do the plans look like for Marason from here?
Yeah, it's a good question. We really, so the last 2 years we've been really big into NDIS, and the government has made some very unfortunate changes around that, where they're stripping a lot of alternative wellness funding for them. But for me, I've realized that there are people out there who are diagnosed with a mental health disability that need help, but then there are also a whole lot of other people who aren't diagnosed with anything at all or don't want any labels. They don't label themselves as depressed or anxious or anything. There is basically a whole spectrum of people that I have discovered that need help.
Yes. Yeah.
So for me, it's really about how do we expand our reach and echo that message to people that this is a safe space for you to not get help or therapy, because I don't like to use those words, but to really just have that safe space to explore a better version of yourself, to gain a healthier perspective that might be able to shift your life in a really positive direction. So for me, honestly, it's a really high level goal that I have, is really to just spread the word that this is possible for everyone to be more happy in life.
That's a word worth spreading for sure. And it's like, I love it that you're doing talks like this. You've been pretty active in getting your message out there.
Yeah.
I know during COVID, you came on some international news programs about the work that you were doing, particularly in relation to men.
Yeah.
And some of the things that some of the traits that they've got that can be supported by your techniques. What are some of the big things that you've helped men be able to achieve, even just by hearing your message?
Yeah, I think for men, honestly, they're not as, they don't feel so naturally drawn to these practices as women do. And men think, okay, well, I'm not going to go get therapy. Like a lot of, your execs and stuff, they don't want to be labeled, they don't want to get things like labeled as therapy. But then they think, oh, well, the alternative is to go to a yoga studio where people chant Om and, do woo-woo things.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like getting a message out there to men that there are more, accessible ways and welcoming ways for them to explore their sense of self rather than being in a very awkward situation.
We got to hold hands and sort of chant kumbaya together kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say that they're probably one of the groups that I love working with the most. I'm really passionate about it. I feel like I can really, help men because of this whole non-woo-woo approach that I like to have. And because I come from a world that's similar to a lot of them, they can start to relate as well and understand that, wow, I actually don't have to throw away everything just to be happy, because that's actually their biggest fear. Like when I talk to them time and time again, the first session is, just before we even begin, do I have to dump my old life to start a new life? Because they're freaking out about that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, you don't. I don't know why you think that. I mean, I guess I do know why you think that, but it's not right at all. And I'm going to show you that you do not have to give away anything you have in life and become, a broke person.
Look, I'm broke and woke.
Yeah, you do not. You do not.
Woke and broke is probably the way to say it. And it doesn't mean I believe that's what happens, but I must admit, when I first started going deep with NLP, because I'd been a student, like I said, for many years. I had the same coach, Richard Ford, 3 hours at a time, every 2 weeks. I started every week and went back to every 2. And man, I would walk out a different person than when I walked in. And it was draining, really going through challenging these beliefs and these questions. And then I met another guy that had been doing it even longer named Bill McLeod. He was referred to me by a few executives. And he said, look, you've already got NLP. I understand that. Just do a day with Bill and see how you go. And it was the same kind of thing. Now, when I came away from it, my wife said to me, have you been smoking weed or why are you speaking so much slower? You seem really calm. It's nice, but are you all right? And she was sort of half serious. And I must admit, I felt great, but I was worried I'd lose my edge. Yeah. I'd worried I would lose my willingness, my drive, my motivation. Yeah. It took me several years to figure out later that what I was carrying around as what I thought was willingness, drive, motivation was a whole bunch of obligation that I'd created for myself so I could react to it constantly and feel important or productive.
Yes, correct. 100%. I feel like so many of my clients need to just hear that bit.
Oh, they'll hear it. Yeah, good. You can just give them that section.
That is so good because it's so funny because when they come to me, they're like, but I don't see ambition as a negative trait. And I'm like, I didn't say it was. I'm not asking you to put that aside. They're like, but you're telling me not to be productive. And I'm like, how do you define productivity? Is rest not productive?
Yes.
And you challenge them, and then you see their eyes just light up and all these epiphanies, and they're like, oh my God.
Yeah. Well, here's another one that you just said is rest not productive. Oh my God, I'm almost embarrassed to say this. So I had this belief for a while that I was one of the very small percentage of the population that does not need more than 6 hours a night sleep, right? Or 6.5 or 7 or whatever the minimum that was getting touted around. I think it was 7 actually. Adults need at least 7. But there's a very small percentage who don't. I'm like, yep, that's me, because I can get up every day and I've got a morning routine and I'm good and I get 2 hours that everyone else doesn't. And I'm thinking, well, if I'm awake 2 hours more than everyone else today, they're sleeping 8, I'm sleeping, well, it was less than 6, but let's just say it's 2 hours extra. I'm like, well, just do the maths. 2 hours every day. It'd be like getting to the day of your death and everyone's coming in around your bed, if you're lucky enough to have your loved ones with you, and saying, oh, well, time to say goodbye, Grandpa. And just as the doctor's about to switch off the machine, someone goes, wait, I got it wrong. You've got another 10 years to live. And that was my rationale, that because I was up 2 hours more than everyone else a day, I've lived 10 more years, because I see being awake as being consciously alive and being asleep as being something else. That was before I read the book called Sleep by I think, Dr. Matthew Walker, and before I got an Oura Ring, and before I started realizing that I was just creating myself like a hardcore dementia case or Alzheimer's or something like that, because your brain needs it.
That's right.
And still, it's only been the last couple of years I've realized that. So that's another message I think that sort of A-type personalities can benefit from, that rest is actually part of a fulfilling and enjoyable life
100%.
where you can be more productive as well.
That's right. Sleep hygiene is so important.
What are your sleep tips, by the way?
My sleep. Oh, I have like a whole ritual around my sleep. Like I love to, a few hours before bed, I like to have dim lighting. So I don't like any overhead lighting on the ceilings. So always turning on my ambient lighting. I have those what are the LIFX, whatever, those bulbs that you can change the coloring?
Yes.
I don't care about any other colors. The only colors that matter to me are the warm white settings.
It's
just all about the warm white and the red light. Okay, that's all you need.
Red's good too, right?
Yeah,
I use red,
So I have quite a pigmented orange light that I like to put on as soon as it starts going dark. So that's really important. The music choice is really important. I don't like any crazy music or anything before bed. playing games.
No gangster rap before bed, you
no
sure?
No gangster rap. I think last night my husband was trying to play like Timberland and I'm like, wow, I feel like I'm going clubbing or something.
Yes,
and it's
we're
at
about to go
11
out.
p.m., which is way too late. But yeah, so it's like it's your senses. You're really trying to flood your senses with things that are great for your sleep hygiene. Even like conversations, like my husband and I call it like nighttime voice. Please use your nighttime voice.
Very different than our regular one. We're both projectors, aren't we?
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's like all of these things and like not doing hectic exercise like too close to bedtime. I find that when I do that, I just can't unwind. I change like the things that I watch before bed, like no like crazy ass, like murder mystery type things. And yeah, I think it's just being really mindful of that stuff. And also something that my clients really struggle with is not just like falling asleep, because sometimes someone can fall asleep very easily. But then I question, how good is your quality of sleep then? And they're like, oh yeah, no, I wake up a lot during the night. And then I say, okay, well, what do you do when you wake up? And they're like, oh, I'm just on my phone. I'm just on my phone.
It's like all that blue light.
Sleep.
Oh yeah, just look at that blue light, which tells your brain that the sun's up.
Correct.
It's the same light that wakes you up in the morning and gets rid of all the adenosine that keeps you asleep.
Exactly. I'm like, oh wow, that's not great sleep hygiene. But sleep is not just about how easy you fall asleep, but it's about how well you stay asleep. And then if you wake up, how easy can you get yourself back to sleep? And that's when we start talking about like meditative practices and certain things that, like certain breathing patterns that can help you get back to sleep and stuff. And then it's about your waking up. Like what are you flooding your brain with as soon as you wake up? Because what I found is really crap is when you wake up to your alarm, you're already sluggish because you've had bad sleep, and then boom, you're rushing, you're scoffing down your breakfast, you're rushing to get out of your house, you're rushing for that first meeting, and before you know it, you're rushing home in peak hour traffic, trying to do everything again for the next day.
Yeah, repeat.
Terrible.
Yeah,
I
Groundhog
can't
Day.
live like that anymore.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So that intentionality around those practices is like the really strong messaging there.
Totally. And like, what do you do when you first wake up? Like I walk my dog, I go to the park. I don't wear my sunglasses before 12 p.m.
Yeah.
Like light practices are so important. And like Andrew Huberman talks so much about it.
Yes.
I love it. I watch all of his light.
Oh, look, Huberman's
videos.
given me some amazing, James Clear, Atomic Habits.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Atomic Habits, like the habit stacking with the Huberman neuroscience,
Yes.
like with the sort of rituals and practices that come from gratitude, spirituality, breath work, like Wim Hof. I'm like, yeah, within about like, I don't know, 8 minutes of waking up. But I'm like, before I had that stuff, I was doing exactly what you said.
Yeah.
Like little things that get in my way that I've learned to fix, right? So it's the routine leading in and also the routine waking up.
Yeah.
Like the more that we can automate of that process so that we're set up for success. Like I was finding little things, like I have a lot of like tonics and stuff in the morning for gut health or whatever, and just spooning things into a cup. There's so much that can go wrong with that when you're half asleep. You think about it. You're in your work clothes or whatever you're about to wear, right? And you go picking something up. There's liquids flying around. It's dark. You're trying not to disturb anyone. You flick something. You could have to change your whole outfit.
That's right.
Right? So why not just put it in the jar, in the cup in the night before? Like it's dry.
Correct.
It's not going to go off overnight. And then put the water in the morning. One thing to do.
Yeah.
So just little things like that.
Totally. I love that. Micro little habits can change your life. Yeah.
One I'll say while we're on the topic of sleep, actually, because it has been quantum for me. I've always been a pretty optimistic person, glasses half full kind of guy, but I think sometimes we can drown out. Because we're optimistic, we're sort of drowning out some suboptimal behaviors because we're constantly making up for it with our optimism. But I was finding that it wasn't a natural energy, it wasn't a natural enthusiasm. I was having to shock myself into it. And so one of the things when trying to improve my sleep has been, well, two things. One of them is the time I eat. If I eat late, it just affects that so much, and even the types of foods, how broken down they are, whether they've got like fiery things in them or things that are hard to digest. And the other one, like I don't really have hot showers. I have cold showers, but I know a lot of people have a warm shower later at night. And it's very comforting for them. And they get their PJs on and they go and sit on and watch a bit of TV, right? And you think about what's just happened there. We've raised our core body temperature, which is actually something that needs to drop for sleep.
Exactly.
Most people have their rooms at like 23, 24 degrees when optimal's like 18, right? So like if we're having a hot shower before bed and eating a late meal and then watching blue light on a TV, it's like, what's our chances?
Correct. And one extra thing is that a lot of people think just because they fall asleep easy and stay asleep, that they've had good rest. And that's also not true because with your Aura ring, you get all the crazy sleep stats.
Yeah.
I had a Whoop watch before, and you think you've had the best sleep because you're conked out, but that's just because you're exhausted.
Yes.
You go back to the stats and you're like, oh, my recovery was terrible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, look, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. Exactly. And that's the thing. I think I was deliberately not getting an Aura ring or anything that measured my sleep because I didn't want to know. But yeah, I'm lucky. I'm glad I listened to that book eventually because some people I cared about and that I trusted their message said, MK, you need to hear this book. Just listen to it.
Yeah.
Anyway, wow, this has been incredible. We've definitely been in the flow zone because time's just flown. And I really feel that there's a message to take forward here to listeners that haven't met you yet. They're going to want to meet you in one way or another once they hear some of this message. And I suppose that a lot of our audience are people that are naturally aspirational, right? Yeah. They're aspirational in career, they're aspirational in family, they're aspirational in sporting pursuits or artistry or whatever it might be. And you made a really important statement before is that like a lot of people look like they're put together, but to most people they don't know that they're missing out on that life that they could have, that purpose, that feeling of really living into their potential. Yeah. You can pick it. So if you just imagine yourself before you left Cisco, when you were doing pretty well, you were enjoying your job.
Yeah.
There's another version of you out there right now. What's your message to them?
My message to them is you can have everything you have right now. You can have the same level of ambition. You can climb that corporate career ladder. You can have all those things that you've bought for yourself, that future you're building, everything. But you can have all of that with purpose. And if you don't feel you've got that, you can do something about it, and that will change your life. Wow.
What an amazing quote to end on. I absolutely want to see you and Marason go all the way and make sure that people hear this message, make sure that people get to experience your teachings. And just sitting here across from you, I can feel your presence.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, there's a beautiful energy there. So thank you very much for coming on today.
You're so welcome. Yeah, and if anyone wants to reach out, feel free to find me on LinkedIn or anything. And I'm always available. That's the thing. I make myself so accessible to helping people. So yeah, would love to hear from your listeners.
We'll definitely have it all there in the show notes. Thank you.
Thank you.